Hi, I'm Boskma. I'm in the UK. I'm an insight coach, mental fitness coach, and relationship coach. I do this work because I love people and want to help them improve their lives in various ways. Today, I'm talking with Jamil. Would you please introduce yourself a little to us?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me, Deanna. This has been
Thank you
great.
for being with us.
Yeah. And I hope everyone who's listening is doing as well as possible, having a great day, and looking forward to the holidays that are coming up. And so it's wonderful to be with you all. I think, the question, tell us a little about yourself, or who are you? I feel like it's such a big question that oftentimes we answer it in a way that doesn't really capture who we actually are. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that even with that said, my answer doesn't capture who I actually am. But but
No,
I think
nevertheless.
what I will say is, what it really comes down to it is, I'm someone who loves human beings, and I'm somebody who really lights up and comes alive when I see somebody else excited to be who they are, excited to live their purpose, excited to be just on, to be
Mm-hmm.
alive. And I
Yeah.
think that anyone who steps into a helping service type of profession that wants to do that, to me, it doesn't get more divine than that. Like a
Mm-hmm.
type of work that just helps other people spark and just come on and come alive, so
Yeah.
that they can give their gifts to the world, and they can show up as the most powerful version of them. And so I'm somebody who loves to do that.
Well, that sounds pretty good. It's definitely a really good answer. What made you go into coaching? Because you started somewhere else, didn't you?
Yeah. So um, essentially, my story starts in this kind of time frame. When I was 14 years old,
Mm-hmm.
I got into, I didn't call it coaching at the time, but it was health coaching in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
I joined the track and field team. I became a runner, and I was getting sick all the time, and I didn't know why. And running pretty much exacerbated certain health weaknesses, you could say, that I had. And I
Yeah.
had a lot of bad habits when it came to my health. And I did some online searching. I read some books, and I realized, I had a lot of things that I was doing improperly that was really messing with my health.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of patient zero, and I worked and experimented on myself, and I got way healthier, and I felt better than ever, and I started running faster. And certain people noticed, and certain people would ask me, hey, you know you're doing this and you're getting great results, like, can you help me with this? And so I'd say, yeah, sure. And then eventually there'd be people that I knew that were, I was 14, and they were in their 20s and 30s and
Yeah.
40s, and they'd be asking me advice about their diet and their lifestyle and how they can get off certain medications, because I had
Mm-hmm.
spent a lot of time diving into all that. And they started getting healthier and healthier and healthier. And I had certain family doctors that would say, hey, what are you doing? Because it's working really well, and
Mm-hmm.
we'd love to figure some of this stuff out. And so that was that initial impetus for me to dive into this realm of helping people.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started thinking, what are the other areas of a really fulfilling life?
Yeah.
And the areas that came up to me were relationships and business,
Yeah.
and because I already had the health kind of part covered, and
Yeah.
then happiness and spirituality and things of that
Mm-hmm.
nature. And so I thought, all right, well, just like health, around 15, I dove into relationships, and I thought, who are the top marriage therapists, dating coaches, bought their books, bought their products, went through it, studied communication, studied everything I could that they had to offer. And just like
Mm-hmm.
with the health side, I'd be talking to people, and slowly but surely it would happen where, hey, my spouse and I, or my partner and I, were having some issues, and I would be mediating their conversations. And then I'd get a message from them 3 months later saying, hey, we didn't get a divorce, and you were a big part of that. So thank you. And I
Nice.
was 15, and I felt so freaking happy about that.
Yeah.
And there was this big inner fire that it was like a constant feedback, positive feedback mechanism, where I would learn it because I was interested in it, but then
Mm-hmm.
I would share it, and they would get benefit, and then they would give me praise, and then I would want to do it even more.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did the health side, the relationship side, and then I got into the work of Tony Robbins and neurolinguistic programming, and a lot of motivational speakers like Les Brown and people of that nature.
Yeah.
And I never heard of those people before. And I started watching how they really just spoke life into people.
Mm-hmm.
Someone like a Les Brown, that's a motivational speaker, like kind of literally doing that, and someone like a Tony Robbins, handling more in the NLP psychology realm, and as a
Yeah.
coach, helping people just shift their state, shift how they're showing
Mm-hmm.
up in the world, and helping them have new strategies and all these kind of things. And that
Yeah.
was magnetizing for me. I just
Yeah.
fell in love with that. And so I dove into that with the same kind of ferocity that I had with the other two things. And I've done that, for the last 16 years. And when I was,
Every year another topic.
Yeah. So it's like 16 years. Like it was more like every year add on to it instead of like, it wasn't like individual years. And so every year I just added on to it. And then around 17, I took a world religion class that, blew open my mind to all these different philosophies and religions and spiritual practices that I maybe heard a little bit about, but I never really exposed myself to intentionally. And it was so beautiful that I went out and over the last 10 years since then.
Yeah.
So I'm 30 now, I was 17. So it's the last 13 years, just diving into all the different world religions and reading all the different holy books and spiritual texts and integrating that into the coaching, because that's such a big part of life and there's so much wisdom and truth in those teachings. And so that all culminated. And when I was 19, I was in my second year of college and university over there, maybe. But
we call it university.
And so I'm from the US. And so I was 19 years old and my dad had a brain aneurysm. And for anyone's not familiar with what it is, imagine one of the blood vessels in the brain, think of it like a tube, and imagine a part of it kind of balloons out. Yeah. And if you're fortunate, you have the worst headache of your life, and then you go get it clipped and you're good. My dad wasn't as fortunate, and his ruptured. And he was in a 4-hour brain surgery, and we were told that it was the worst aneurysm the neurosurgeon ever saw, and he put the survival chance at less than 5%. And I had a lot of medical people in my family who were trying to be supportive, but their way of doing that was like, let me prepare you by telling you that he's not going to make it. And, I was 19, but at any age, you don't want to hear that, right? And so I was sitting there trying to be hopeful for my mom, my sister, and be strong for them, and holding back all my emotion. And I'm being told these things. And so that wasn't what I wanted to hear. And then 4 hours went by, and we were told he probably wasn't going to survive. And he did. And he was in a coma. And I walked into this room. Already there was like gratitude, because it's like this miracle that he's alive. He was already like the 5% or less, let's say. And he was in a coma. And my dad, he was the epitome of what it meant to be a man for me. He was, I looked up to him. He was such a beautiful soul, and he loved life, and he had so many different passions, and he loved people. And there was, he was a physician himself, and he was also one of the top Elvis impersonators in the world.
Oh, wow.
And music was his passion. And for him, he was a drummer since he was a kid. He was all state, all county, all those kind of things. And then he got into the Elvis stuff, and he traveled the globe with Elvis's band, and he did tours with them. And like, he was well known in that space. And he would joke that my colleagues have golf, I have Elvis. And so he would do these big shows for charity, and it was wonderful to see. And so music was such a big part of our life. And I share that because I'm giving you this like visual of this guy that had so much energy, so much life. He would be on stage doing all these things in his free time. And then there he was in this hospital bed in a coma. And, he didn't wear a wig or anything. He had like the Elvis kind of hair. He grew that out. And now it's like his head was shaved and there's brain surgery. And so the visual was really graphic, and it was very hard to see. And in that moment, there were two things that I predominantly experienced. I experienced a sense of helplessness because there wasn't anything I could do, because we were told he was in this really critical, fragile place and he could die at any moment. And so from that place, it felt like I want to do something, but all I can do is kind of just be with him in that moment. Coupled with, I felt this regret because I felt like I took my relationship with him for granted. He was 49, I was 19. And my mindset was where I think a lot of people are. Most of us don't really reflect on our own mortality. Most of us don't really think about the impermanence of life. And so from that place, my 19-year-old self is thinking, oh, he's 49. I'll have another 30, 40, 50 years with him. Not thinking, oh yeah, this Sunday, it could be the last time. And in that moment, there was a lot of regret. And over the next 3 years, before he did end up passing away, but over the next 3 years, we helped him make almost a full recovery. And so much of what I learned from 14 to 19 in health, in psychology, in my own emotional maturity, helped me to help him. And it was amazing that he started getting healthier and healthier and healthier. He got off a lot of his medication. He had short-term memory problems, and those started to improve. And that was really, really beautiful. And at the same time, though, I experienced, my highest highs and my lowest lows. The highest highs being, there I was in that hospital regretting I didn't spend the time that I wish I could have, and now I'm not going to have my chance.
Yeah.
And then I had 3 years of spending almost 10 hours, 15 hours a day with him
That's
and
great.
doing everything. And he became one of my best friends.
That's
And in that sense, it was beautiful.
mm-hmm.
In other senses, there were moments where that short-term memory created immense frustration. There were moments where we did something really beautiful with him and for him, and it was a birthday or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then an hour later, he completely forgot the whole thing.
Oh, that is.
And then we would be arguing with him
Yeah.
that it happened. And obviously it's not his fault.
No.
But we were just arguing because it's like our egos didn't want to know and admit that maybe this was as good as he was going to get, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And there was moments where he forgot who I was. And I remember that after spending, that much time with him on a day-to-day basis, I took 2 years off after university to be one of his primary caregivers.
Mm-hmm.
And anyone who's a primary caregiver knows there's so much physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual like taxing that does on you. It can be very draining if you don't take care of yourself.
Yes.
My dad was in a condition where he couldn't be left by himself because he could lose his balance, he could fall, he could hit his head, all these things could happen, and he was prone to seizures after the aneurysm.
Oh yeah.
And so there were so many moments where he came close to dying just in my arms. And in those 3 years, though, I just learned so much about myself, about life. I still wanted to do medicine. I was inspired by my dad, a lot of my uncles, to do that at an early age. And I still didn't really have once I got exposed to Tony Robbins, I had an idea what a coach was.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea was, well, I want to do that, but I do still want to be a doctor. I'll find a way to like merge those two.
Yeah.
And then after the 3 years, my dad passed, and I remember being at his wake, and it was 5 hours long, and over 7,000 people came. And I shook every single one of their hands, and almost everybody said, "Your dad saved my life."
Oh, wow.
And I just remember people coming up to the casket from different religions, different faiths, and everything, and asking, like, "Can I do this?" And so much love was outpouring for this man. And there was this moment of just realization that I had been playing small in my life, that I cared way too much about what other people thought about me, that I was afraid of rejection, and that I was really robbing the world. I see it as each of us have this divine spark in us, this light that's unique to us, that it's something that only we can offer. But the thing is that what most of us do out of fear, insecurity, all these things, we block our light and we try to be somebody else.
Yeah.
We try to be who we think other people expect us to be or want to be or who we're supposed to be. And I was doing that too. And there was that awakening in that moment of just never again. And from that place, life really shifted for me. And after he passed, I gave myself time and I said, you know what? I've experienced a lot of death in my life, and I didn't want to suppress anything. I saw a lot of people do that, and to each his own, it's their choice. And I just saw the negative effects of that, and I didn't want to do that in my own life. And so for me, I just allowed myself to feel every emotion after that, to release it, cry, do whatever I needed to do. And I didn't time it, but it ended up being, about 2 weeks. And 2 weeks later, I woke up with such a peace. And there was this deep gratitude and appreciation that I knew him at all, and that I had him in my life, and that an acceptance of what had occurred without any resistance. And that felt so light and love and beautiful for me. And then since that moment, that state has, for the most part, stayed there. And that's been really beautiful. And I stayed home with my family for about 6 months to a year to kind of be with them, help them as we transitioned into a new way of life, a new chapter. And then I moved to Arizona and I spent 5 years there in medical school. And, it was such a beautiful chapter of my life, and matured in so many ways, learned so many things, got exposed to so many things that deepened my coaching practice and at that point I was actually calling it coaching and I was doing it. And in my final year, I made the commitment to myself that I want to do what really lights me up, and I want to do what I love more than anything, and it is coaching. And I'm going to find a way to combine the medicine, but I'm not going to practice medicine in the way that my colleagues are. And so I graduated, went full on into my business, because up until that point, I'd been doing it for free. And I turned it into a business after I graduated, with a week after I graduated med school. And then it's been about 3 years since then. And it has been a wild ride. It's been so beautiful to, was very fortunate to work with clients from around the world, people who, leaders and high performers, people who want to make an impact. They want to make a difference. They want to do and be the best they can at the things that matter most to them. And they might show up because they want to make more money. They might show up because they're not happy. They're not fulfilled. They might show up because they want to improve their relationship. They have a vision, a goal, a dream. They want to work on that. But whatever the case may be, really helping them come alive again and show up as that full version of themselves. That's been my gift that I've been able to experience. And it's also the gift that I've been able to give. And that is probably the short to medium version of my story.
Beautiful story. It is a beautiful story.
Thank you.
And in some ways even relatable.
I appreciate it.
What has been your most profound experience with coaching for yourself? Because I'm sure you've been coached.
Yeah.
You all have.
My most profound experience in my coaching, and
for yourself.
Yeah, for myself. But I want to extend it because this applies to anybody, whether it's coaching or not.
Okay.
When I chose to hire my first coach, it was a fee that I was not comfortable paying because it was way more than I'd ever invested in myself. And prior to making that investment, I definitely had hesitation. And I sat with it, and I was on the call with this guy, and he was already a friend to a certain degree. And I chose to do it. And what I noticed is right after I made that investment, my business, I hired him as a business coach because my business wasn't doing well. Within days, I felt I hadn't even had a session with him yet. Within days, just making that investment in myself, I felt this level of commitment show up in me that I'd never experienced before. There was a degree of seriousness or sincerity rather, that I like that word more, sincerity that I devoted to my business, where I started showing up in a way that I hadn't. And all the reasons why my business wasn't successful became really obvious. And then, fast forward 4 or 5 months into working with him, and my business has already grown like 4 times since the previous year.
Yep.
And it was the reason why I say it extends out is because for me, investing in my own coaching made the biggest difference because it was an investment in me.
Yep.
Also, whether it's coaching or not, anyone who's listening, committing to something fully, usually it takes finances to do that, but even if it doesn't, committing to it and going all in on something, it is, and to the point where there's something at stake. When you've got money on the line, you typically pay more attention. But if it's not money, it's like, you put peer accountability. You tell people you're going to do something. If you don't do it now, it kind of negatively reflects on you. And so from that place of making a commitment that matters, it is amazing how your life can transform in a powerful way.
Yep.
And most of the time I find that we don't make commitments. We have preferences. We're interested, but we don't make commitments. And that was an example for me of making a commitment. As a quick story, I think a mentor of mine, who I think potentially is a mentor of yours as well, Steve Chandler, he's a coach. And he tells this really great story that I think is really relevant here, where he says, JFK, John F. Kennedy, a president in the United States in the past, when he was younger, he was at part of this school, they had a uniform, and there was a little hat as part of the uniform. And you had to wear the full uniform or you got in trouble. And if you came home without your uniform or parts of your uniform, your mom would kill you. It's like, that was just how it was. And there was this wall that him and his classmates always wanted to climb, but nobody was ever able to climb it. And so what he did is he looked at the wall, and everyone basically had already defined it as it's impossible to climb. And he took his hat and he threw it over the wall. So now he knows now, I can't go home without that hat.
Yeah.
And he found a way to get over the wall. And it also reminds me in the Christian Bale Batman movies, in the last one, I think it's he's in the giant prison in the well. They go deep down, and everyone's trying to get out. And the only way out is you climb up, and then there's this one part where you got to do this running jump, which is really wide to get to the other side. And if you make that jump, you're probably going to get out. But no one's ever got out except for this one little kid. And the difference was, if you don't make that jump, you're going to die. And so what everybody does is they tie this rope around their like waist. So if they jump and they miss, they don't die. They'll just be hanging, and then they'll pull them down. But the boy who did it didn't have a rope. And so there's this perspective where Christian Bale, Batman's character, he tries to do it multiple times. He fails. And as he's sitting in his jail cell, the older guy next to him says, if you want to make it out, do it like the child did. And then he says, without the rope. Because when you go without the rope, it's do or die.
Yep.
You are going to show up as fully as you possibly can. And from that perspective, it's really wise too, because it's like saying, look, you're not going to make it out of here trying with that rope. And so you either try it fully and maybe die, or you just stay here and die. And in that same way, in each of our own lives, if you don't make the commitment to do what you say you want to do, if you don't make the commitment in yourself to turn into the person and become the person that you could be, you do die. It's like a spiritual suicide.
Yes.
You die as you could be. The dream that is in you, that has been given to you, if you want to say it that way, dies. It can't become manifest because you're not stepping into that version of you. And so that was the most profound and of my coaching personally. And I hope that it was relevant for others in that sense.
Oh, I'm sure. Definitely for coaches, because I've experienced that as well.
Yeah.
I ended up investing in a coach last year that I thought I have no idea how to pay him. So I did. It was literally, I've done it again. End of last year, I've done it again. There, I had this thing. I have no idea where the money's going to come from, and I didn't want to know what he was going to charge. I'll hear next year.
and that's the thing. What you just said, it's I don't know, because a lot of people might think that no matter what they're investing in, I don't know where the money's going to come from. But notice that
it will come.
If it will come, and if you want it enough, you'll find a way to make it happen. You know, a quick story, if I may share.
Sure.
Two things. One, one of my past clients, amazing woman, she took loans out to work with me because she didn't have money. And then in my own life, when I was getting trained in neurolinguistic programming, I did the general certification first. And it was such a beautiful experience. And they had like the upsell, which is like this deeper, more profound training, way more expensive than the first one.
Of course. And
I had wanted to do that training. I think I was 27 when I did it. I wanted to do that training since I was 15.
Okay.
And
it's about time.
And I sat there, exactly. I sat there thinking, I need to do this, right? So, I want everyone to hear this in a way that this story is not about me. This story is about you. Because when you listen to this story, put yourself in this position, but just change the details, obviously. It won't be an NLP conference. It'll be something. Yeah. But this was the point. I go to the back room, and there's this lady who's running the show, and she says, are you interested in doing the training? And I say, absolutely. But I need a payment plan because I can't afford that. And she goes, all right, yeah, we have a payment plan. Here's the payment plan. And I look at it and I go, I still can't afford that. And I said, but I really want to do this. Can I come up with a different payment plan? So notice right there, I'm already like, it's not even like negotiate. I'm going to pay you the full price, but can I pay it in my own way? Because I can't pay it that way. And I wanted it. And so the lady goes, well, what do you have in mind? And I'm like, well, let me sit with it for during lunch and I'll come up with something. And I came up with something which I wouldn't have been able to do long-term. Like well, what I came up with was, all right, I've got 6 months to pay this off. If they give me these first 2 months at a lower payment, I can pay those two. And then I have no idea how I'm going to pay the last 4, but I need to make some magic happen. But I got 60 days to do it. I've got 2 months.
That's enough.
And so, yeah, so that was, so I go back to the woman and I say, this is what I can do. And she looks at it and she goes, let me run it by like my boss, my manager, and I'll let you know in like an hour. She comes back and she goes, my manager says, we can't do that. But the thing was, she had already told me, okay. So she goes, because I told my manager that I said yes to you, he said it's okay for you. And so the thing was, but I had to put down like $2,000 as a down payment. And I didn't have it. I was a student. I was in med school. I was living on loans and debt and all that stuff. And I sat there thinking, all right, I called people. I got like a loan from this person. I paid them all back. I put that little bit down myself that I had. And then I make the investment. And initially I'm like a little scared because I sit there thinking, I'm excited. I'm like, oh my God, like it's November and the training's in July. And I sat there thinking, I'm going to do it. And then it hits me that the first 2 payments come out and now it's January. And so now the January, I'm like, all right, if I don't bring on clients this month, I can't pay my rent because the monthly payment was more than my rent. And I committed to my business and I committed to showing up powerfully for people. And I brought on 2 clients that week that paid for everything. And then June comes around because we have to be paid up. You got to be paid in full before it starts. And June comes around, I make my last payment. And initially I'm so proud of myself. You know, I did it. Like I found a way to come up with the money for something that I really want to do versus what most people do is say, I can't afford it, but then don't allow themselves to be creative and find a way to afford it.
Yep.
And then it hits me. This training is 2 weeks long, 8 hours a day, every day in a different state. So I need to live somewhere. So then I said, I didn't think about that. And now I need to come up with the money for housing. And I brought on a new client that week. I made it happen and I did the training. And that training not only was a training valuable and powerful by itself, it was so much more powerful because when I walked through those doors, I was the youngest person in that training. And I was only there because I made it happen.
Yeah.
And because I invested so much into that training with time, energy, stress, everything, I really paid attention. I got so much out of it. And just being in that training, 2 weeks go by, I do all that stuff. Fast forward, I have made back the investment in that training like 10, 15 times over. And it's only been a few years since. Yeah. And the thing is, but that's how every investment is. No matter what it is, you invest in yourself, it comes back. Yeah. And so many people, again, anyone who's listening, there's something that you want to invest in, whether you can invest your time in it, you can invest, you want to learn something, you want to grow in a certain way, you can invest your money in it, you can invest your energy in it, you can invest all 3, but whatever the case may be, when you make that commitment that you think you can't is a very like self-destructive word because can't takes away your creativity and your power as a creator. It's more powerful to say, it's not, I can't afford it. It's, I'm not willing to do what it takes to afford it. I'm not willing to find a way.
That's more honest.
I had a client who had no money. Who took out a loan to work with me. Like I said, she didn't have the money. She found the money. Right? In that same way, we could all do that. Most people live in a home. If they have a home, let's say like a house.
It's mortgaged.
And they don't have the money, let's say, to pay for that house up front. They have a mortgage.
Who does?
In that same way, you don't say, oh, well, I guess I can't live there because I don't have the full payment for the whole thing. No, you pay, you figure out a way to finance it. And it's like so many investments would be willing to do that. And it's like so many of us, we discount ourselves. One of my book mentors, Robert Kiyosaki, wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad and all these different financial literacy books. He talks about growing up. His rich dad would tell him, stop saying, I can't afford it, and start saying, how can I afford it? Start asking yourself questions. You know, what can I do? Yeah. What can I stop paying for that's draining my money, that's not serving me? Because most of us, I have friends who've told me that they had like 3 or 4 monthly subscription services that they forgot about, that they haven't used in 3 years, that they've been paying for 3 years.
Why do you still have it then?
That's my point. And so it's like, you know, you can look at your life and see, wow, where's the money that I'm already making and spending that maybe I can transfer some of that and not use that anymore? Where is some places like I have to get new clients? Maybe you work some extra hours at a place you work at. Maybe you do whatever. But when you get creative, how can I make this work? It's such an empowering place to be because when you do it, when you figure out the way like I did with that training, I now have direct proof in my life that I can do that. If I don't have money, I can find a way to get it because I've done it before. That is such a powerful knowing in me. It's not even a belief. I've done it. I know it. But if you haven't done it, then it's easy to be in doubt. It's easy to be in, I don't know if I can do this.
Yeah.
And so I think that's just one of the most powerful things we can do.
Yep. I recently had a very similar experience where I thought I can never answer it. Well, yes, I can. And they will jump on it. That was really those kind of moments. They are the best because they just change you. Literally change you. Yeah, cool stuff. What has been the most profound experience you've had with a client with coaching? One of these major breakthroughs.
Yeah. So there's there are, I'm blessed to say there are many, and the one that I'd say the one that stands out the most, not that it's like better or worse, but the idea of how profound it was.
Yeah.
If anyone, the way I like to metaphorically describe it, have you ever seen the movie Inception?
I don't think so.
It's the Christopher Nolan, he's the director, and Leo DiCaprio, the actor. But anyone who's seen it, the premise, because this is related to what my answer is, the premise, you can go into somebody's dream and you can plant some seeds being a thought or something of that nature that will spread. And all of a sudden they wake up from the dream state and they start seeing life differently, believing a different thing. And if you planted something in their dream that maybe they now think is theirs, right? That's the premise of the movie. And there's a whole phenomenal movie, if anyone, I recommend it. But the point being, I do a lot of guided visualization. I did that before I was in my coaching business, and I really loved that. And it wasn't, I never had to prepare it. It was just, I would be in a flow state. I would just be present. You could call it channeling something. I was just there. And I would have this person close their eyes, and then they would share with me prior in a conversation their goals and dreams, their fears, their struggles, their traumas, their whatever. And maybe 20 minutes, maybe 40 minutes, maybe an hour, whatever the case may be, because it was making it up on the spot. So I wasn't like timing it. It was complete. It was complete. They would close their eyes and I would build this world in their mind and take them through this process. And it was so fun in the sense that I felt so alive and present.
Yeah.
Because there was this excitement of, I have no idea what I'm going to say in the next second. And I completely had faith and trust that I'd figure it out. And that allowed me to really go deep with people. And that was prior to my coaching business. And so now I have my coaching business. I use the visualizations when necessary. And there's a lot of NLP stuff with the visuals. But in this one woman, she was a patient of mine because I practiced for a little bit before I went full on into my coaching. And she had an autoimmune disease. And we did this visualization.
Yeah.
And she had told me that she had some significant, fears and traumas around certain things that on the surface appeared like they had nothing to do with the condition.
Yeah.
But I had enough book knowledge, but also some life experience to know that those two things are related. And when I took her through this 45 minute kind of guided meditation, guided visualization, helped her release that fear, reach forgiveness, do all these things. She came out of that. She looked like a completely different person. Her autoimmune disease was manifesting as like extreme pain, like 8 out of 10 in her body, like all the time for 13 years. And she had no pain. She came back a week later, no pain all week. First time with no pain, on no medications. And she felt so free. And there was many other aspects of her life that physically that improved. But she's been seeing doctors with pain management, medications, injections, all these kind of things, and nothing really worked. And that 40 minutes and it's gone. And that to me that is a transformation that I will never forget. Seeing the look on her face when I was like, how's your pain? And she's like, what pain? Like, I don't have any. And it's like, and she was so thankful and gave me a big hug and she was crying. And I had colleagues that were like, how the hell did you do that? And it's not something you learn as a doctor. And it's like, but it was deeply, I have some tears in my eyes now. It's like, that was really beautiful. And so it's like that experience stands out to me as like probably the single most impactful. But outside of that, somebody releasing weight, whether it be part of the NLP training. It's called mental emotional release. And part of that, some people call it timeline therapy. It's got different names, but it's like this idea being helping somebody figure out what are the moments in their life where these emotional traumas, these stuck emotional energies, like whatever it is, something that's still keeping you stuck now.
Yeah.
And it might be, during your lifetime, but it's very interesting how oftentimes people say, because hypnosis is involved in it, and people, and I have some hypnotherapy background, and people will say, oh, it was during my birth, or it was when I was in the womb, or it was before I was born, like a past life. And it's very interesting that I didn't believe in that prior to getting trained in it. And then when I had the process done on me, I answered it was before my birth, and we went deep, and I didn't even know what I didn't have a memory of it, but I had a feeling of it. And there was this like heaviness, and there was all this, and I was just going with the process. I didn't know what the hell was going on. And then it released.
Yeah.
And I was like, I had tears in my eyes, and I felt light, and I was like, I don't even know what the hell just happened. And it was amazing. And since being trained in that and providing that service for people, usually I do it before the coaching, because it kind of creates a strong foundation to build off of, because you've released all the emotional baggage from the past. And I've had some people have some wild and profound experiences releasing some things that they didn't know were there. And similar to that other woman, when they get released, they are just so lit up. They look younger. Their eyes are more like life in them. And I just sat there going, like, I love this. And like, and so that is, I'll stop it there because there's so many stories, but like, it's a beautiful profession that we are in.
It is. You're combining stuff that makes it even more impressive. But you have another chance of telling a good story, because what was the most interesting thing that you learned from a client? You may have 2 stories, maybe 3.
Yeah, or 5, 8. Let me think. Just give me a moment, because it's an interesting. The word "interesting" was in it, but it's an interesting question. Most interesting thing I learned from a client.
Yeah. I know we all learn from them.
No, absolutely. It's the first thing that came to mind, which I think is really interesting and valuable. When we're with somebody else, if we are really present, they can serve as a mirror.
They do.
For us.
Yes.
And I think being with clients over the years, especially when I was doing it for free, if we count those years, it's been 16 years. And in that time frame, I've definitely enhanced my ability to listen and to be present, to be with people. But I used to be the person that would interrupt you like crazy, that would not listen. And that was me when I was younger. And getting to be with people and have them just reflect to me by who they're being, by their responses, both verbally and body language, how I am coming across and how I'm communicating, and being able to now know, as I'm with somebody, when I need to adjust, and they don't have to say anything, because I know that I am being something that is not serving this person in this moment. And I feel like that is the first thing that came to mind that is most interesting, because being with others in a way that was very deep and profound, and creating that safe space that they can be themselves and open up and with no judgment on my end, that required me to learn a lot about myself. And I learned so much from each of my clients. And in that sense, every one of my clients is, my greatest teacher. And so that was the first thing that came up when you asked me that. Of course, I've learned things individually from people. That was something like they taught me, but I feel like that was probably the most powerful lesson.
Wait, there is.
It froze for a moment, but I hear you now.
Yeah. Okay, good. I saw that it was unstable for a moment. Yeah, it happens. Yeah, there are a lot of people talking with a lot of people on Zoom.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else that you would like to share? Okay, cool. Go for it.
is there anything that would be specifically helpful that you believe for the listeners, or just kind of free reign, take it however I want it? All right.
Yeah, free reign. It's about you today.
Yeah.
Instead of about a client, it's about you.
I mean, if anything, I think it's probably like the most powerful recommendation, whatever you want to call it, recommendation, advice, whatever, that I could provide. Sounds so generic, and yet it's some of the most powerful wisdom and advice I've ever received when I actually applied it, when I actually took it to heart. And I think that most of us, we hear certain phrases and we think, oh, you know, that's a cliche. As in, like, it's not true, or I know that already. But things that are cliched are almost always like the most true things. It's just, we just let them kind of fall by the wayside because we know them intellectually. We're usually never living them from a heart place. And so for anyone who's listening, the best advice I could ever share is be you. You know, when I think about that experience with my dad and when I was 19 and the regret, and then after he passed at the wake, and recognizing I was afraid of rejection and all those things I mentioned. Every single one of us, you know, Jim Carrey's got this great line that I love where he says, paraphrasing it, depression is when your soul, he says your avatar, but either way, your soul is sick and tired of playing the character you're forcing it to play. This idea that if you're not happy,
makes so much sense.
Yeah. This idea that if you're not happy, if you're not fulfilled, if you're not excited for life, check in, because you're probably holding back. And you might have been doing it your whole life to the point where you're not even aware of it. But you are potential, not you, but anyone who's listening. You're potentially.
I personally take it to heart as well because of that.
But it's like anyone who's listening, there's a very good chance that there's areas in your life that you are being very inauthentic. And I don't say that with any judgment. I say that with nothing but love, because if you were to be authentic, if you were to actually be you, you were to make decisions based on what excites you, based on what calls to your heart, what lights your spirit on fire, that kind of stuff. Not only would your level of success across the board, because success isn't just like finances, it's so many things, but your level of success across the board would improve. All of your relationships would improve, because the ones that actually matter, the ones that are going to stick with you, they want to see you more alive. They want to see you loving life, and you want to see you loving life. And you can't make a meaningful impact on the world if you can't make a meaningful impact on yourself. And if you can't make, you know, one of this kind of expressions I came up with that I really like is I would say to clients, create a meaningful day or create a meaningful life. And when I say create a meaningful life, somebody might respond with, how do I do that? And I might say, you create a meaningful life by creating a meaningful day. And you create a meaningful day by making a meaningful decision in this moment. Meaningful meaning it's moving you closer in the direction that you would like to go in. It's meaningful for you. It matters to some degree. And when you make a meaningful decision in this moment and you do it again and again and again, you create a meaningful day. And when you go to sleep at night, right before you doze off, there's this degree of fulfillment and happiness about, you know, what a day. Like that was living, you know, whether it was contribution to other people, contribution to yourself, whatever you were doing. Which is funny too, because when you contribute to yourself in this way, you're contributing to others automatically. Because that energy that we all feed off of, you're just lighting people up by being you, you know? And so with that in mind, you do enough of those days, you create a meaningful life. You don't have to think about the life, think about the moment. And when you look at your life, especially with New Year's coming, you know, even though it's more like metaphorical, a day is a day, but New Year's is coming representative of this new calendar year. And from that place, look at your life, reflect on the year. What are you absolutely in love with? And what could use some fixing? What could use some letting go of? What isn't serving you anymore? It might have served you in the past, doesn't mean it's good for you now. And as you look toward the future, what do you want to be different in 2021? And then once you get clear on all those things across the board in your life, the only way life is different is if you become different. You need to go first. And so from that perspective, be yourself, get crystal clear on what's working and what's not working, what's meaningful and what's not, what serves you and what doesn't, and actually choose to live that life that you say you want. because for most of us, there's who we're capable of being,
Yep.
and there's who we're actually being. And there's a gap.
Yeah.
And so the question ultimately is why? Why is there a gap? Why are you capable of 10 out of 10 and you're showing up at a 4? Like, your family doesn't deserve that. Your clients don't deserve that. You don't deserve that. Why are you half-assing it? Why are you showing up like as if the most important thing in your life is the least important thing?
Yes.
You know, when somebody says, this is my goal, I want this. And I say, all right, great. How long has that been your goal for? And you tell me, oh, 6 months. And I might say, wonderful. What's been your progress? And you say, I haven't made any. Well, it's because you don't actually want it.
Mm-hmm.
You're lying to yourself. You're interested in it. You're not committed to it. And again, no judgment. I say that with love, because if I don't say it, you're going to keep BSing yourself. And so from this position of lovingly, confronting somebody, a mentor of mine calls it care fronting. I like that. Lovingly care fronting somebody for them, being a mirror, calling the best out of you. And that's what I love to do with my clients and helping them open up to a new way of living. And everyone who's listening, no matter how good your experience of life is, because you might be listening thinking my life is great, wonderful, and it could be greater. You could help others make their life greater. There's so much we can do in our lifetime. There's a quote by the Dalai Lama that my dad's story always brings up in my mind, where he says, most people live as if they're never going to die, and then they die having never really lived. Yes. And when we show up with this energy that I'm going to be around forever, when we show up with this energy that I have time, then you procrastinate, put things off. You're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and you're reflecting on the dreams that you had when you were 20 and 30 and 40, and you kept putting it off and you never did it. Oh, I always wanted to go to that place, and then you never did it. I know you're someone who's very well-traveled. It's like, you want to go somewhere, go. Like there's ways to make it happen. And it's like, but you got to choose. And so it's like, in that same way, ask yourself, am I living my life as if I'm never going to die? Is there a sense of urgency in my life? Because when I was 19 and dad had that aneurysm, there was a moment there of, oh yeah, I've heard this before, but I felt it and I knew it finally that not only am I going to die, and everyone's going to die, at least physically, but I don't know when that moment's going to come. And in those 3 years, 2 of my cousins passed away. I was 19, one of them was 20, and one of them was 21. And if you spoke to either of those people when they were, let's say, 17, and say, tell me about your life, what you want it to look like, I guarantee you neither one would think they'd be dead in under 5 years. And so from that perspective, I ask everyone listening, how much time do you have left?
You don't know.
And you have no idea. And so now, what are you going to do with that information? You're going to keep wasting it? Or are you going to know that every day I wake up, 150,000 people didn't wake up on the planet, and you weren't one of them. And so you had at least today. And if you're fortunate, and let's say the people that you love most, they're waking up too, you hit the lotto from the get-go. And so from that place, actually live your life, stop existing. That is the number one piece of advice that I could give anybody, because when you come alive, the whole world benefits.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I had 2 friends die young, and my dad died young. So I had this thing of, life's too short. Got to do it now. Doesn't mean I always have.
And likewise, me neither. There's moments but the key is every day is a recommitment. You don't make a commitment once. You make a commitment, and then the next day, do I still want this? Do I still want this? And if the answer is yes, keep choosing it. Keep choosing it. There's a distinction I make between wanting and choosing, which is why I said earlier, oh, you had the goal for 6 months and you still don't have it because you don't want it. It's because when you say, or you're not committed to it rather, when you say, I want it, wanting without being backed up by action is just wishing. Actual choosing is a decision. There's action. You get it, whatever it is. And maybe there's that person that you want to be in a relationship with. You want to ask them out. Maybe there's that place you want to travel to. It could be small things. That new restaurant you wanted to go to for like 8 years that you've never gone to, and you walk by it every day. There's that whatever that you want to do. It's like, go do it. Stop waiting. There's that program you wanted to do, certification you wanted to do, you wanted to go back to school, you wanted to learn something new, you wanted to learn a new language. I know you also speak like an amazing number of languages. Like you're a perfect example of someone that actually practices this. And when we can all show up in that way and do you, not only be you, but like do life your way. Like don't try to live somebody else's life. Don't try to live up to expectations of other people.
Doesn't work.
Yeah, don't do.
It starts hurting me to live someone else's life.
Yeah. And so again, if you're listening and there's a part of you, I can kind of finish this part with this part. I had a client message me last week and she said, how do I know when it's time to change? And I said, when you ask that question.
Yes.
If anyone's listening, oh, I'm waiting for a sign to change. The waiting for the sign, like that's the sign. The fact that you're just waiting there.
Don't wait.
Yeah, I mentioned Jim Carrey, the Jim Carrey movie that I watched when I was younger. I loved it, called Bruce Almighty, where he plays.
Yeah, I know that one. Yeah.
And in that movie, in the beginning, he's driving. I think he's in the rain. Yeah, he's driving in the rain, and he's really pissed off. And he says, "God, give me a sign." And this truck pulls up in front of him with 1 million like road signs in the back saying turn around, slow down, like wet road, like all these things. And he's so disconnected from the moment that he's like, what is this joker doing? Because the guy's slowing down in front of him. So he speeds around him and he ends up like crashing. And the thing was like, give me a sign. That was the sign, like literally. And in our lives, it's like, give me a sign. The fact that you're feeling this, you're feeling out of alignment. You're feeling like, something's not right. That's the sign. Like, do something about it. And once you do that, like life ignites in such a beautiful way.
Yes, it does. Well, I can say thank you for this coaching session because this was quite good. I really enjoyed it. And I think I had a couple of moments where I thought, I can do better.
I appreciate that. I hope everyone listening, there's something that they took. And my strongest hopeful recommendation for anyone listening, don't just listen to this like it's like anything that you listen to in general. Most people don't listen to this and then go about your day like nothing changed. Listen again, take notes, apply, actually take action.
Yeah, do something.
Your life will actually change forevermore in a beautiful way.
Yeah.
And this podcast, this Facebook Live with Deanna will absolutely change your whole life. You just
it
need
will
to
also be a podcast, so don't worry about it.
It's
going to be everywhere. I literally have a sticky note there that says do something because it's just something I need to remind myself of it every now and then. I have to do something.
So wonderful.
Yeah. Right. Anything else, or has this been good for you?
So this has been wonderful. I come alive speaking about this stuff. Yeah. And so I appreciate the space and the opportunity, and I'm glad that, I always look at it as if one person benefits, it's worth it. And so you've already said you have, and I have, and so it's already a win. We're having fun. And everybody else, I hope you listened and enjoyed this as well. And
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. And only other thing I can say is, if you need help, get help. Yeah. Whether it's me, whether it's Deanna, whether it's anybody, find someone you resonate with.
Reach out.
Find somebody who can be a guide for you. Find someone who can be a co-creation partner. Find someone who can help you get that dream, that vision, that goal faster than you ever thought possible.
Yeah.
And reach out if that's me. And if it's not, I really wish everyone here a beautiful holiday season, a beautiful new year. And I deeply hope that the rest of your life is the best of your life.
Cool. Well, thank you for joining me today. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right. That's it for today. And there we go. Bye.